Hi, this is Colleen from Keeping the Peace, and welcome back to another episode of Colleen Answers Your Questions. Today, our question comes in the down bar of 7 factors to consider for choosing a handgun. Episode 4, we were talking about size and weight, and the question comes from Steven. We just did a question from him. If you haven't seen that, it was 2 videos ago. Please go back and watch that. He says, I agree, only the shooter can fine-tune specific size / weight and recoil recovery factors to his or her personal experience. What handgun would you suggest as a home defense weapon for a blind shooter? This is a gun to be used only for home defense. I thought something in a revolver, such as the Ruger LCR snub in .38 Special with an enclosed hammer would be a good choice. I would load with the Federal Low Recoil personal defense round or buffalo bore wadcutter, depending on the physical ability of the defender. That's such a great question. I've never trained a blind shooter, and I've never had a question about a blind shooter, and honestly, until you asked the question, I never really spent a lot of time thinking about what I would do if I were to train a blind shooter. But now I have thought about it because you asked this question, which is great. Keeping me on my toes there, Stephen. Honestly, it would completely depend on the shooter. It would be an individual basis, what I would recommend for that person, same as it would be for a sighted shooter. Because a blind person has all kinds of heightened senses that we don't have, so they're actually better at certain things than we would be. So I wouldn't probably make a blanket recommendation to them based on their quote-unquote disability. I would more so try to work with them and find out what their strengths are and play to those. I would definitely introduce both revolvers and semi-automatic handguns. It would take a lot of training, of course. You'd need to spend a lot of time teaching them how to aim with their bodies, okay? Because what we train as sighted shooters to do, we begin training with sights, okay? We train with sights, and our body memorizes what we're doing as we verify with our eyes that the gun is sighted properly. As you shoot, as you train, the more and more you do it, the more and more your eyes are used simply to confirm that your body is aiming the gun. So you would be working from the reverse. You would be teaching them how to use their body to aim the gun, and they wouldn't have that sighted reference. They would have your verbal cues as the verifier, okay? Because you would be telling them, yes, you're hitting, that sort of thing. You would be helping them to memorize body positioning and, proper grip and all that sort of thing. They would be using their body to aim. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily revolver over semi-auto. I would introduce both, see which one they work with better. Do I think that a blind person can manipulate a semi-auto just as well as a sighted person? Absolutely yes. Do I think that semi-autos would be best for every blind person? No. In my opinion, it's easier to shoot well with a semi-auto than it is with a revolver. That's just my personal opinion, because that's been the case for me, and that's been the case for most of the people that I have trained. And I don't try to heavily influence a person one way or the other. I try to introduce both and see what they do well with and help them to learn the things they need to make their own personal choice for revolver over semi-auto. So I hope I'm making sense here. I wouldn't recommend one particular one. Now, going back to what you said, if it was going to come down to a revolver, I love the Ruger LCR. It's absolutely my favorite revolver. I'm not real crazy about enclosed hammers because I like to have the ability to cock the hammer. I'd like the ability to have a lighter recoil not lighter recoil, but a shorter trigger press if I prefer to do that, or if I choose to do that on a certain, in a certain given scenario. So I wouldn't want to take that away from them. Now, if there was, you just have to think through all of that. I wouldn't make a blanket recommendation, let me just say that. Because there might be certain times where the enclosed hammer would be better, depending on where they're going to be keeping it and pulling it from, if you wanted to worry about snagging a hammer. So that's a really good question. It opens up so many things in my brain. I could literally probably do an entire series on this. I would actually love the opportunity to work with a blind shooter. It's just never come up. So, great question, Stephen. Thank you for your great input on the channel. You always leave really good comments, really insightful things that you say, and you ask really good thought-provoking questions. You guys out there, have you ever worked with a blind shooter? Or are you a blind shooter? Or do you know someone who is a blind shooter? What have they chosen to do? Or what have you recommended to them? I would love to know. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. This is what's wonderful about the YouTube community. I want to hear what you guys know and what you guys think, because I learn things from you all. If you enjoy the Colleen Answers Questions series, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel to get notification of all future videos, and I'll see you in the next one.